The auctioneer's gavel fell like a death sentence. Evelyn Ashford stood in the corner of what had been her father's study, her spine pressed against wallpaper faded by 20 years of Boston sunlight. The rectangular shadows where his portraits had hung were cleaner than the surrounding walls. Ghost frames, evidence of everything that was gone. Her hands were folded so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She welcomed the pain. It was the only thing keeping her from screaming. Rosewood settee, excellent condition, sold to the gentleman in the gray coat for $30. The settee had been her mother's favorite. Evelyn could still see her there, embroidery hoop in hand, laughing at something her father had said. That was before the cough, before the slow decline, before death took her and left Evelyn with a father who tried to drown his grief in cards and whiskey and increasingly desperate business ventures. Now even the settee was gone. She forced herself to watch as two men carried it through the doorway, careful not to scratch the carved legs. They treated the furniture better than they had treated her. The auctioneer had barely glanced in her direction when she arrived that morning. To him, she was simply another creditor's headache, an inconvenient remnant of a dead man's failures. The November cold seeped through the walls. They had stopped paying for coal 2 months ago. Evelyn had been burning furniture in the kitchen stove just to keep one room warm enough for survival. She turned away from the auction and climbed the stairs to her bedroom. The house felt cavernous now, every room echoing with absence. Her footsteps were hollow on bare floors. The curtains were gone, the carpets were gone, the mirrors, the lamps, the china all gone. In her room, a single trunk sat beside the bed. Everything she owned now, 3 dresses, her mother's pearl earrings, her father's pocket watch, though it had stopped working months ago, and she couldn't afford repair, a book of Shakespeare's sonnets, and buried at the bottom, wrapped in a shawl, a leather-bound ledger she had found 3 nights ago. She had been searching her father's study for anything of value the creditors might have missed. Behind a loose panel in his desk, she found it. A book filled with names and numbers in her father's precise handwriting. At first, she thought it was simply another account book. Then she started reading. The names were familiar: politicians, judges, businessmen, men of reputation and power. Beside each name was a sum of money, a date, and a single word that made her blood run cold: syndicate. Her father, Charles Ashford, respected banker pillar of Boston society, had been keeping records for an organization that loaned money to powerful men. Men who could not afford to have their debts become public knowledge. Men who would do anything to keep their secrets buried. Evelyn had stayed up all night reading. The amounts were staggering. The implications were terrifying. And in the margins in her father's hand, notes that suggested he had been planning to expose them. The last entry was dated 2 days before his death. The official cause had been apoplexy, a sudden seizure while working late at his office. The doctor had signed the death certificate without question, but Evelyn, reading her father's final notes, began to understand. Her father had not died of natural causes. He had been murdered, and now she possessed the only evidence. The knock came after midnight. Evelyn woke from restless sleep to the sound of someone at the front door. Not pounding, just 3 soft, deliberate knocks. She lay frozen in the darkness, her heart hammering. The creditors had taken almost everything, but they were legally required to wait until Wednesday to force her from the house. It was only Monday night. 3 knocks again. Patient. Insistent. She rose, pulled a shawl around her shoulders, and crept to the top of the stairs. Through the window beside the door she could see the silhouette of a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a hat pulled low. "Miss Ashford." The voice was quiet but carried clearly through the door. "I know you're there. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to warn you." Every instinct told her to stay silent. But something in the man's tone, a weariness, perhaps even regret, made her speak. "Who are you?" "Someone who worked for your father. Someone who knows what he found. And someone who knows that the men he planned to expose think you might know too much." Evelyn's hand went to her throat. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The ledger, Miss Ashford. They know he kept records. They've been searching his office, his bank, everywhere. They haven't found it yet, but they will come here. And when they do, if they think you have it, or if they think you've read it, they won't just take it. They'll make sure you can never testify." She was shaking now. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your father was a good man who tried to do the right thing, and because you're 23 years old and you don't deserve to die for his courage." There was a long pause. When the man spoke again, his voice was softer. "There's a train leaving for Chicago at 6 tomorrow morning. If you're smart, you'll be on it. Go west. Change your name. Disappear. It's the only way you'll survive. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go." "Then make somewhere. Your father left you one thing those men can't take, your life. Don't waste it." She heard footsteps retreating. By the time she worked up the courage to open the door, the street was empty. Only footprints in the frost on the walkway proved anyone had been there at all. Evelyn didn't sleep the rest of the night. She sat at the small desk in her room and composed a letter by candlelight. Her hand was steady, her words carefully chosen. She had seen an advertisement weeks ago in a newspaper at the lending library. She had dismissed it as desperate nonsense at the time. Now it was her only option. She signed the letter with a name that was not quite hers, Evelyn Hart. Close enough to remember, different enough to hide. By dawn she had packed her trunk. By 5 she had slipped out of the house for the last time, leaving the key on the kitchen table. By 6 she was on a train heading west, clutching a one-way ticket and a reply that had arrived just yesterday, forwarded from the newspaper. The letter was brief, honest to the point of harshness, but it offered her something she desperately needed, a choice. The train journey was 10 days of constant motion and gnawing fear. Evelyn sat in third-class cars that smelled of coal smoke and unwashed bodies. She kept her trunk close and her eyes down. At every stop she watched the platform for anyone who might be following. At night she dozed fitfully, her hand always on the small knife she had taken from the kitchen. Chicago was chaos, noise and smoke and overwhelming crowds. She had 3 hours between trains. She bought bread and an apple from a vendor and found a bench in a corner of the waiting room. That was when the loneliness truly hit her. She was alone, completely alone. No family, no friends. No one in the world who knew where she was or cared whether she lived or died. She was traveling 2,000 miles to marry a man whose face she had never seen, whose voice she had never heard, whose character she knew only through 4 carefully composed letters. It was insane. It was terrifying. It was the only choice she had. At 2 a.m, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion, Evelyn opened her trunk and took out her father's ledger. She ran her fingers over the names. These men had killed her father. These men would kill her if they found her. An infant was crying somewhere nearby. A young mother, dark circles under her eyes, rocked the baby with mechanical motions. She looked as exhausted as Evelyn felt. Without thinking, Evelyn rose and crossed to the woman. "May I?" The mother looked up surprised, then nodded gratefully. Evelyn took the baby, gently cradled the warm weight against her chest. She walked slowly back and forth, humming a melody she barely remembered. Her own mother had sung it to her lifetimes ago. The baby quieted. The young mother closed her eyes and slept. Evelyn stood there in the nearly empty waiting room, holding a stranger's child, and felt tears slide down her cheeks. She was crying for her father, for her mother, for the life she had lost, for the girl she had been, who had believed the world was safe and just and fair. That girl was dead now. In her place stood someone harder, someone who understood that survival required sacrifice, that safety was an illusion, that sometimes the only way forward was to burn everything behind you and walk into the unknown with nothing but hope and stubbornness. The baby stirred. Evelyn returned her to the sleeping mother, wiped her eyes, and went back to her bench. She did not open the ledger again. The Montana Territory was like another planet. After the cities, after the farmland, after the endless Nebraska plains, the landscape changed. Mountains rose like teeth against enormous sky. Pine forests thick and dark. Valleys that seemed to drop forever. And over it all that sky, bigger than anything she had ever imagined. So vast it made her feel insignificant. So beautiful it made her heart ache. The train climbed through the mountain passes where snow still clung to the peaks even in late November. It descended into high plains covered in brown grass that rippled like an ocean. She saw cattle in the distance, dark shapes against the gold landscape. Once a group of riders appeared on a ridge silhouetted against the sunset, then vanished. This was cattle country, Lucas Reed's country. The reality of what she was doing hit her in waves. She was going to marry a stranger. She was going to live on a ranch in the middle of nowhere. She was going to spend the rest of her life in this empty, enormous land where the sky was too big and the distances were too great, and everything she had ever known was 2,000 miles behind her. Her hands started shaking. She gripped them together, forcing herself to breathe. In, out, in, out. She could not fall apart now, not when she had come this far, not when there was no going back. The conductor walked through the car calling out stops. Wolf Creek, next stop Stillwater. Stillwater, her destination, the end of the journey, the beginning of everything else. The train began to slow. Through the window she saw lights in the distance. A small cluster of buildings, the town, her future. She stood on shaking legs and pulled her trunk down from the rack. Other passengers were already moving toward the door. She joined them, trunk in hand, and stepped out into the Montana night. The platform was small, just a wooden structure with a roof and a single lantern. The town beyond was dark, except for a few lit windows. The air was shockingly cold, sharp enough to hurt her lungs. And the silence. After 10 days of train noise, the silence felt enormous. A man was waiting on the platform. He stood near the lantern, tall and still wearing a heavy coat and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. As the other passengers dispersed, he stepped forward. Miss Hart. His voice was deep, quiet, careful. Evelyn's mouth was dry. Mr. Reed. Yes, ma'am. They stood looking at each other across 6 feet of platform. The lantern light was dim, but she could make out some details. Broad shoulders, rough hands. A face weathered by sun and wind, older than she had expected, though she was not sure why. He had told her he was 34. There was nothing soft about him, nothing polished. He looked exactly like what he was, a man who worked with his hands in hard country. But there was something else, something in the way he held himself. A watchfulness, as if he were always assessing, always alert to danger. How was your journey? He asked. The question was so normal, so civilized, that it almost made her laugh. Long, she managed. Very long. He nodded as if he had expected that answer. I have a wagon. Hotel's a short ride. I've arranged a room for you. A room. You'll want to rest. We can talk in the morning. He picked up her trunk as if it weighed nothing and started walking toward the edge of the platform. Evelyn followed, her legs unsteady after days on the train. A wagon sat in the darkness, plain, practical, hitched to 2 horses. Lucas Reed loaded her trunk into the back with economical movements, then offered his hand to help her up. His hand was rough with calluses, warm despite the cold. She climbed onto the bench and he followed, taking up the reins. The wagon lurched into motion, wheels crunching on frozen ground. The town passed around them. Dark buildings, empty streets, a dog barking somewhere. Everything small, everything quiet. It's not much, Lucas set his eyes on the road ahead. The town, about 200 people. General store, livery, blacksmith, hotel, saloon, church on Sundays. Doctor comes through once a month. I see. Ranch is 6 miles out. Good land. Creek runs through it. House is sound. He was giving her facts, practical information. Evelyn appreciated that. She did not think she could handle polite conversation right now. They reached the hotel, a 2-story building with light in the windows. Lucas stopped the wagon and climbed down, then helped her descend. He retrieved her trunk. I'll carry this in. Room's already paid for. Inside the hotel was warm and smelled of wood smoke and coffee. A woman behind the desk smiled at them. Mr. Reed, you must be Miss Hart. Welcome to Stillwater. Thank you. Room's at the top of the stairs, second door on the right. Breakfast is served at 7. Lucas carried her trunk up the stairs and set it down outside the room. He pulled a key from his pocket and handed it to her. Get some rest, he said. I'll come by at 9 tomorrow morning. We can talk then. Evelyn took the key. Her hand was shaking again. Mr. Reed, he paused. Lucas? The name felt strange in her mouth. Thank you. He studied her for a moment. In the better light of the hallway, she could see his face more clearly. Weathered, guarded, but not unkind. You came a long way, he said quietly. That took courage. Then he turned and walked back down the stairs. She heard the front door open and close. Then silence. Evelyn unlocked her room and went inside. It was small but clean. A bed with a quilt, a washstand with a basin and pitcher, a chair, a window looking out onto the dark street. She set her bag down and sank onto the bed. 10 days of travel, 2,000 miles. And here she was in a hotel room in Montana Territory waiting to marry a stranger. She should feel terrified. Instead, she felt numb, empty, as if she had used up all her fear and anxiety during the journey and had nothing left. She washed her face in cold water, changed into her nightgown, and climbed under the quilt. The bed was softer than the train bench. The room was quiet. Tomorrow she would meet Lucas Reed in daylight. Tomorrow she would see the ranch. Tomorrow she would begin to understand what her life might become. Tonight she was simply too exhausted to think. Evelyn closed her eyes and fell into dreamless sleep. Morning came with pale sunlight through the window. Evelyn woke disoriented, not remembering where she was. Then it came back. Montana. Stillwater. Lucas Reed. She sat up, heart pounding, and looked around the small room. Real. This was real. She washed and dressed in her day dress, plain brown wool, practical and modest. She pinned up her hair and studied her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. Dark hair, gray eyes, pale skin. She looked tired, thin, not particularly pretty, though her mother had always said she had a good face. Strong features. What did Lucas Reed see when he looked at her? She pushed the thought away and went downstairs. The dining room was small with 3 tables. A few other guests were eating breakfast, 2 men who looked like traveling salesmen, an older couple. The woman from the desk appeared with coffee and a plate of eggs, biscuits, and bacon. "Here you are, dear. Eat up. Mr. Reed will be here soon." The food was simple but good. Evelyn ate slowly, trying to settle her nervous stomach. The coffee helped. Strong and hot. Better than anything she had had on the train. At exactly 9 o'clock, the front door opened, and Lucas Reed walked in. In daylight, he looked different. Evelyn's first impression was of controlled strength, the kind of physical presence that came from years of hard work. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a spare, muscular build. His face was weathered skin, darkened by sun and wind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he spent a lot of time squinting into distance. His hair was dark brown, slightly too long. His jaw was shadowed with a day's growth of beard. And his eyes. Gray like storm clouds, watchful, assessing. He removed his hat and nodded to her. "Miss Hart, morning." "Good morning. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, thank you." He gestured toward the door. "Would you like to walk? We should talk." She stood, leaving her half-finished coffee. He held the door for her, and they stepped outside into the Montana morning. The town looked different in daylight. Small, rough. The main street was dirt-rutted from wagon wheels. The buildings were mostly wood-weathered and practical. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks white against blue sky. The air was cold and impossibly clean. It carried scents she could not name. They walked in silence for a minute. Lucas Reed seemed comfortable with quiet. He did not rush to fill it with empty words. Finally he spoke. "I want to be clear about the situation. I know this isn't what you probably imagined when you thought about marriage." Evelyn almost laughed. What had she imagined? At 23, she had assumed she would marry someone from Boston society. A lawyer or merchant her father approved of, love had seemed like something that might grow over time. Companionship more important than passion. Then her father had died, and imagination had given way to necessity. "I didn't imagine anything, Mr. Reed. I needed an alternative to destitution. You offered one." He glanced at her. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or relief that she was not going to pretend this was romance. "I won't lie to you," he continued. "Ranch life is hard. Winter's coming, and it's brutal here. You'll need to learn skills you don't have. Cooking, preserving food, managing livestock. The house is 6 miles from town. You could go weeks without seeing another woman." "I understand." "Do you—" He stopped walking and turned to face her. His eyes were gray like storm clouds, and they held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "I need you to really understand," he said. "I'm not offering you Boston. I'm not offering you comfort or society or any of the things you're used to. I'm offering you partnership, hard work, honest dealing, respect." That's all. Evelyn met his gaze steadily. What are you afraid I'm expecting? The bluntness of the question surprised him. She saw it in the slight widening of his eyes, the pause before he answered. I'm afraid you think this will be something it won't be, that you'll get to the ranch and realize you've made a mistake, and then we'll both be trapped. Is that why you offered the return ticket? Yes. She studied him. His face was hard to read, weathered and guarded. The face of a man who had learned to keep his thoughts private. But there was something in his eyes, not unkindness, just caution. The weariness of someone who had been hurt before. You loved your wife, she said quietly. His jaw tightened. Yes? I'm not trying to replace her. Good, because you can't. He paused, then added more gently, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to be honest. I appreciate honesty. They started walking again. Lucas was quiet for a moment, then spoke again. Sarah was my wife for 4 years. She knew ranching because she grew up on a ranch. She could rope a steer and birth a calf and cook for a crew of 10 without breaking stride. She was suited to this life. And I'm not. I don't know if you are or not. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Evelyn felt a strange calm settling over her. This was good, honest conversation. No illusions, no pretty lies. I don't love you, she said. I know. I don't know if I'm capable of loving anyone right now. The last year has been difficult. I know that too. I'm here because I'm practical, Mr. Reed. I needed an escape from a situation that was going to destroy me. You offered one. That doesn't mean I'm desperate enough to accept anything. I have standards, even now. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. What standards? Honesty, respect, fair dealing. You've offered all 3 in your letters. If that's real, if you mean what you wrote, then I can make this work. I can learn to cook and preserve food and manage chickens. I can learn to live without society or comfort. What I can't do is live with cruelty or dishonesty or a man who would trap me in a situation I couldn't escape. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. That's fair. They had reached the edge of town. Beyond lay open land rolling away toward distant mountains. The sky was enormous. The silence was profound. Come to the ranch, Lucas said. See it. See the house, the land, what your life would be. Then decide. I meant what I said about the return ticket. The choice has to be yours, freely made. When? Now. I have the wagon. We can ride out. You can look around and I'll bring you back this evening. Or if you want to stay, there's a spare room. No pressure. No expectations. Evelyn took a breath. This was it, the moment of decision. She thought about Boston, the empty house, the creditors, the closed doors, the future that had narrowed to nothing. She thought about the man who had warned her at midnight, about the ledger hidden in her trunk, about powerful men who would kill to keep their secrets buried. She thought about Lucas Reed's letters, the careful honesty, the offer of choice. All right, she said, let's go see the ranch. The ride took an hour. They left town, heading west, the wagon rolling over rough track that could not quite be called a road. The land opened up around them. Vast rolling plains covered in brown grass that rippled in the wind. The sky was impossibly huge, pale blue, and cloudless. In the distance, mountains rose like a wall, their peaks sharp against the horizon. Lucas handled the horses with easy competence, his attention on the track ahead. He pointed out landmarks as they went. That's Widow's Peak, a distinctive rock formation. Creek runs through that valley. Good water year-round. Neighbors are the Crawfords 3 miles north. Good people. Tom and Martha, 4 kids. Evelyn listened, trying to memorize details. The landscape was overwhelming in its emptiness. She had never been anywhere this open, this exposed. It made her feel small and vulnerable. Not many trees, she observed. No, wrong climate. There's some cottonwood along the creek, and I planted a windbreak near the house, but mostly it's grass and sage. They crested a rise, and Lucas pulled the horses to a stop. There. Evelyn looked where he pointed and saw it. A house sitting in a shallow valley, a creek glinting silver nearby. Buildings clustered around it. Barn, corral, a few smaller structures. The house itself was wood painted white with a covered porch and windows that caught the morning light. It looked neat, well maintained. Lonely. That's home, Lucas said quietly. They descended into the valley. As they got closer, Evelyn could see more details. The vegetable garden dormant now for winter, the chicken coop, the corral with several horses, a windmill turning slowly in the breeze, everything functional, orderly. Two men emerged from the barn as they approached. Lucas raised a hand in greeting. That's Jim and Caleb. They work for me year-round. Good men. He stopped the wagon near the house and climbed down, then helped Evelyn descend. His hand was steady on her elbow, respectful but sure. The two ranch hands approached, hats in hands. They were young, mid-20s, weathered and capable-looking. They studied Evelyn with frank curiosity. Jim, Caleb, this is Miss Hart. She's visiting from Boston. Ma'am? They nodded respectfully. Miss Hart, Jim manages the cattle operation. Caleb handles horses and maintenance. Between the three of us, we keep this place running. Evelyn nodded to them. Pleasure to meet you. Will you be staying, ma'am? Jim asked. That remains to be seen, Lucas said firmly. Miss Hart is making no commitments today. Understood? Yes, sir. The men retreated to the barn. Lucas turned to Evelyn. Let me show you the house. He led her up the porch steps and opened the door. The interior was simple but well built. They entered directly into the main room, a combination kitchen and living area. Stone fireplace, cast iron stove, long wooden table with benches, a few chairs. Shelves along one wall held supplies and cooking equipment. Windows on two sides let in good light. Everything was clean but sparse. The home of a man who lived alone and kept things practical. Kitchen, Lucas said unnecessarily. Stove draws well. Fireplace heats the room in winter. Water comes from the well outside. There's a hand pump. He moved to a doorway. Bedroom here. Evelyn looked into a small room containing a bed, a chest of drawers, a chair. Plain. Masculine. The bed was made with military precision. There's another bedroom on the other side. Lucas opened a second door. This room was smaller, unfurnished except for a narrow bed and a trunk. Storage, mostly, but it would be yours if you stayed. Privacy, your own space. He was being careful, giving her room to breathe. Evelyn appreciated it. And that's it, he finished. 4 rooms, root cellar outside for storing vegetables, smokehouse for meat, outhouse behind the barn. Evelyn walked slowly through the main room, taking it in. It was smaller than any room in her Boston house, more rustic, but it was solid, well made. The kind of place that would stand against whatever weather Montana threw at it. She went to the window and looked out at the valley. The creek sparkled in the sun. The mountains rose beyond. The land rolled away in every direction, empty, vast. What do you think? Lucas asked quietly. Evelyn turned to face him. He stood near the table watching her with that careful expression, hoping she realized, but trying not to show it, trying not to pressure her. It's lonely, she said honestly. Yes. And beautiful. Yes. And nothing like anything I've ever known. That's true. She walked to the table and ran her hand along the smooth wood. Sturdy. Practical. Built to last. You made this. How did you know? It's like everything else here. Well made. Honest. She looked at him. You built this life yourself, didn't you? The house, the furniture, the ranch. You carved it out of empty land. My father helped. He homesteaded this place, proved up the claim. I inherited it when he died. But yes, most of this I built myself. Show me everything, Evelyn said. The barn, the garden, the creek, all of it. I want to understand what I'm choosing. Relief flashed across Lucas's face, quickly controlled. All right. The week that followed was the strangest of Evelyn's life. Lucas brought her back to the hotel that first evening as promised. But the next morning, she returned to the ranch, and the next, and the next. He taught her to cook on the big iron stove. She burned bacon and ruined biscuits and made coffee strong enough to strip paint. But slowly, incrementally, she got better. He showed her how to gather eggs from chickens that pecked her hands and squawked indignantly, how to haul water from the well, how to read the signs of weather in the sky. Jim and Caleb watched with poorly concealed curiosity, but they were respectful, never intrusive. On the 4th day, a woman came to the ranch. Evelyn was in the kitchen attempting bread for the 3rd time when she heard a horse outside. Through the window, she saw a woman dismounting, tall, elegant even in riding clothes. dark hair under a smart hat. Lucas came out of the barn and his entire body went rigid. Evelyn could not hear what they said, but she saw Lucas shake his head. Saw the woman gesture insistent. Saw Lucas's jaw set in a hard line. Finally he turned and walked toward the house. The woman followed. "Evelyn," Lucas said, as he entered, his voice carefully neutral. "This is Margaret. She says she's my sister. But I don't have a sister." Margaret smiled. It did not reach her eyes. "Half-sister Lucas, our father's second family. We've never met, but I've been searching for you for years." She turned to Evelyn, extending a gloved hand. "And you must be the bride from Boston. How lovely." Evelyn shook her hand automatically. Margaret's grip was firm, assessing. "I'm sorry to intrude," Margaret continued, "but when I heard my long-lost brother was finally settling down, I simply had to meet his intended. Family is so important, don't you think?" Lucas's expression was thunderous, but he said nothing. What could he say? Deny her in front of Evelyn? Throw her out when she had done nothing overtly wrong? Margaret stayed for tea. She was charming, gracious, full of questions about Boston, about Evelyn's journey, about the upcoming wedding. And the entire time Evelyn felt those assessing eyes on her, cataloging, judging, searching for something. When Margaret finally left, promising to visit again soon, Lucas stood on the porch and watched her ride away. His hands were clenched into fists. "You don't believe her," Evelyn said quietly. "I know my family history. My father had one marriage, one son, me." "Then who is she?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." On the 6th day, Lucas asked Evelyn to ride out with him to check the northern fence line. She agreed, eager to see more of the ranch. They rode for an hour, the land opening up around them. Lucas was quieter than usual, troubled. "You're worried about Margaret," Evelyn said. "I'm worried about why she's here. Why now? What she wants. Maybe she's telling the truth." Maybe. But his tone said he did not believe it. They stopped to rest the horses near a stand of cottonwoods. Lucas dismounted and helped Evelyn down. For a moment they stood close, his hands on her waist. She could smell leather and sage and something earthy that was just him. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "before you make your decision, before we go any further, I need to know something." Her heart began to race. "What? Are you running from something?" The question hung in the cold air between them. Evelyn's first instinct was to lie, to deny. But she looked into his gray eyes and saw the same wariness she felt, the same understanding that they were both carrying secrets. "Yes," she said finally, "I am." "Is it illegal?" "No, I haven't broken any laws." "Is it dangerous?" She thought of the ledger, the names, the midnight warning. "It could be, for both of us, if they found me." Lucas nodded slowly, as if he had expected this answer. "Who are they, the powerful men? Men who would do anything to protect their secrets. Men who killed my father." His hands tightened on her waist. "Tell me." So she did. Not everything, but enough. She told him about her father's death, about the ledger, about the warning, about changing her name and running west. When she finished, Lucas was silent for a long time. "You should have told me sooner," he said finally. "I know. I'm sorry, but would you have let me stay if you'd known I was being hunted?" "Yes." The certainty in his voice surprised her. "Why, because I'm running too." Now it was Evelyn's turn to be silent. Lucas released her waist and stepped back. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration or resignation. "My name isn't Reed. It's Kane. Lucas Kane." The name meant nothing to Evelyn, but the way he said it, as if confessing a crime, told her it should. "I was a Pinkerton detective. 5 years ago I was investigating a corruption case, railroad fraud, bribes to government officials, the usual. But the case went deeper than anyone expected. The men I was investigating, they were connected to something bigger, an organization." "The syndicate," Evelyn whispered. Lucas's head snapped up. "You know that name? It's in my father's ledger, the organization he kept records for." They stared at each other, the implications settling between them like snow. "We're both running from the same people," Evelyn said slowly. "It seems so. And Margaret, I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." On the 7th day, Evelyn made her decision. She woke in her hotel room and knew with absolute certainty that she could not go back. Not to Boston, not to running, not to being alone and afraid. Lucas Kane, or Reed, or whatever his real name was, he was offering her something more than marriage. He was offering partnership, alliance. Two people running from the same darkness, choosing to stand together instead of alone. It was not love. Not yet. But it was real. It was honest. And right now that was worth more than any romantic fantasy. She packed her trunk. She walked to the courthouse. She found Lucas waiting on the steps. "I've decided," she said, "and I'll marry you, not because I have no other choice, because I'm choosing this, choosing you. Whatever happens next, we face it together." Lucas's expression transformed, not quite a smile, but something close. Relief and hope and cautious joy, all mixed together. "All right then, let's do this properly." They went inside. The justice of the peace was a practical man who asked no questions beyond the legal requirements. Jim and Caleb stood as witnesses, both of them cleaned up and looking pleased. The ceremony took 5 minutes, vows spoken plainly, hands clasped firmly. "You may kiss your bride," the justice said. Lucas looked at Evelyn silently, asking permission. She nodded slightly. He leaned in and kissed her, brief, respectful, his lips warm against hers. It was not passionate. It was not meant to be. It was a promise sealed and witnessed. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Reed." They signed the papers. Lucas paid the fee. And just like that, Evelyn Ashford became Evelyn Reed, or so she thought. That night, back at the ranch, Lucas showed her to her room. Still her room, separate and private as promised. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow we start building our life together." Evelyn nodded, but she was too keyed up to sleep. At 2 in the morning she rose and went to the window. The valley was silver under a full moon. Beautiful, peaceful. Movement caught her eye. Lucas was outside, walking toward the barn with a shovel. Evelyn watched confused. What was he doing at this hour? She pulled on her robe and slippers and crept downstairs. Through the kitchen window she could see him more clearly. He was behind the barn in shadow, digging. His movements quick and efficient. After 10 minutes he set down the shovel and picked up something. A bundle wrapped in canvas. He placed it in the hole and began filling it in. Evelyn's heart was pounding. What was he burying? And why in the middle of the night she watched until he finished, smoothed the dirt, and walked back toward the house. She hurried back to her room, slipping under the covers just as she heard his footsteps on the stairs. Morning came gray and cold. Evelyn came downstairs to find Lucas already making coffee. He smiled when he saw her. Morning wife, morning husband. The words felt strange, but not wrong. They had breakfast together. Lucas talked about plans for the day. She tried to act normal, but all she could think about was what she had seen. Finally, as he was putting on his coat to go check the cattle, she spoke. "Lucas." He turned. "Yes? What's your real name?" He went very still. "I told you. Lucas Kane." "That's the name you gave the Pinkertons. But is it your real name? The name your mother gave you?" His face closed, guarded, wary. "Why are you asking?" "Because I saw you last night, burying something behind the barn at 2 in the morning, and I need to know, if we're going to be partners, if we're going to face whatever's coming together, I need to know who you really are." For a long moment, Lucas said nothing. Then he crossed the room and took her hands. "My name is Lucas Kane. That's the truth. What I buried that's complicated and dangerous, and I'll tell you, but not here, not now, tonight. I promise I'll tell you everything." "Why not now?" "Because Margaret is coming back today, and I need to find out who she really is before I can explain the rest." "You think she's dangerous?" "I think she's connected to the syndicate, and if she is, then we have bigger problems than secrets between us." Evelyn's hands tightened on his. "What kind of problems?" "The kind that could get us both killed." Before she could respond, they heard horses outside, multiple horses. Lucas went to the window and his face went pale. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. "Margaret, and she brought friends." Evelyn looked out. Margaret was dismounting along with 3 men, well-dressed, hard-eyed, and the way they moved, the way they scanned the property. "They're not friends," Evelyn whispered. "They're hunters." Lucas pulled her away from the window. His voice was low and urgent. "Listen to me carefully. Those men are syndicate. I don't know how they found us, but they're here. and they'll want two things. The ledger you're carrying, and me. What do we do? You're going to smile and play the happy bride. I'm going to find out what they know. And tonight, after they leave, we're going to decide whether we fight or run. Lucas. Yes. My name isn't Hart. It's Ashford. Evelyn Ashford. He smiled grimly. Nice to finally meet you, Evelyn Ashford. Nice to meet you too, Lucas Kane. There was a knock at the door. Polite, patient, inevitable. Lucas squeezed her hand once, then let go and walked to answer it. Evelyn stood in the middle of the kitchen, her heart hammering, and prepared to meet the men who had killed her father. The game, she realized, was just beginning, and the stakes were life and death. Margaret stood on the porch with three men who had the look of professional hunters. Not the kind who tracked animals, the kind who tracked people. Lucas opened the door with his hand resting casually on his belt. Evelyn knew enough now to recognize the gesture. His gun was there, hidden under his coat, ready. Margaret, Lucas said, his voice neutral, this is unexpected. Is it? Margaret's smile was bright and empty. I told you I'd visit again. I've brought some associates. Gentlemen, this is my brother Lucas and his new bride. How charming that you've already married. When was the ceremony? Yesterday, Lucas said. The lie came easily. They had actually married a week ago, but something in his tone told Evelyn he was buying time, creating confusion. How wonderful. I'm so sorry I missed it. Margaret gestured to the men behind her. This is Mr. Garrett, Mr. Shaw, and Mr. Coleman, business associates of our late father's. They've been trying to settle his estate and tracked me down. When they learned I'd found you, they insisted on meeting you personally. The man called Garrett stepped forward. 50s, silver hair, expensive suit under his traveling coat, eyes like a snake. Mr. Reed, a pleasure. Your sister has told us so much about you. We had no idea Charles Kane had another son. Lucas's face betrayed nothing. Charles Kane died 15 years ago. I don't know what estate you're talking about. Of course. These matters are always complicated. Perhaps we could come inside, discuss this properly. It's quite cold. It was a test. Evelyn could feel it. If Lucas refused, he would seem hostile, suspicious. If he agreed, he would let wolves into his home. 5 minutes, Lucas said. My wife isn't feeling well. She needs rest. They filed inside. Evelyn played her part, moving slowly to a chair by the fire, as if exhausted. She let her hand rest on her stomach in a gesture that could suggest pregnancy or simple nausea. Margaret's eyes tracked the movement. The men arranged themselves around the room, not sitting, standing in positions that cut off exits. Garrett near the door, Shaw by the window, Coleman near the hallway to the bedrooms. Professional. What is it you want? Lucas asked. Simply to verify some information, Garrett said smoothly. Charles Kane kept meticulous records. Before his death, he was involved in certain financial arrangements, loans primarily, to men of standing who valued discretion. I wouldn't know anything about that. No, we understand his records went missing after his death, along with his daughter, a young woman named Evelyn Ashford. The room went very still. Evelyn kept her face blank, her breathing even, but her heart was hammering so hard she thought they must hear it. I don't know anyone by that name, Lucas said. Garrett pulled a folded paper from his coat. A wanted poster. He opened it and studied the sketch, then looked directly at Evelyn. Strange? She bears a remarkable resemblance to your bride. The dark hair, the gray eyes, even the way she holds herself. Tell me, Mrs. Reed, where are you from? Evelyn met his gaze. Philadelphia. My family is gone. All dead. Yellow fever. How tragic. And you met Mr. Reed through a matrimonial advertisement. Ah, yes, the romantic notion of mail-order brides. How modern. His smile was a razor. You'll forgive my curiosity, but you seem quite educated for someone seeking marriage to a frontier rancher. Most women in such circumstances are, shall we say, less refined. Most women in such circumstances haven't lost everything to disease and creditors, Evelyn said quietly. Desperation doesn't discriminate based on education, Mr. Garrett. Quite true, quite true. He folded the poster and returned it to his coat. Well, I can see you're not the woman we're seeking. My apologies for the intrusion. He turned to Lucas. Your sister mentioned you might be interested in reconnecting with your father's business associates. There are opportunities for men of discretion. Men who understand that some arrangements require absolute loyalty. I'm a rancher. I don't have time for business. A pity. The compensation is quite generous, enough to expand operations considerably, purchase more land, hire more men. Garrett paused. Provide better security for a new wife. The threat was barely veiled. I'll keep that in mind, Lucas said. His voice was ice. Garrett smiled. Do. We'll be staying at the hotel in town for a few days. If you change your mind, you know where to find us. They left as smoothly as they'd arrived. Margaret lingered on the porch. I'm sorry about that, Lucas. I didn't know they would be so forward, but they're right about the opportunities. Father's organization takes care of its own. You should consider their offer. I'll pass. Don't be hasty. These are dangerous times. Accidents happen, especially to people who refuse protection. She touched his arm, her voice dropping. I know what happened to Sarah, how she died. The baby, too. Don't you want to make sure history doesn't repeat itself? Lucas went rigid. Evelyn saw his hand move toward his gun. Margaret stepped back quickly, still smiling. Just something to think about, brother. I'll see you soon. She mounted her horse and rode after the others. Lucas stood on the porch watching them disappear down the valley road. His knuckles were white on the porch rail. Lucas, Evelyn said softly, they know, both of us. They know exactly who we are. But they didn't arrest me, didn't try to take the ledger. Because they're not law enforcement. They're syndicate, and they don't want arrests. They want leverage. He turned to her, his face stark. They want us afraid, compliant. They'll give us a few days to think about their offer, and then they'll come back with something worse. What do? We prepare, and we figure out who we can trust. Jim appeared from the barn. He'd been conspicuously absent during the visit. Now he approached the porch, his face grim. You heard all that? Lucas asked. Every word. Boss, we need to talk. All three of us. They went inside. Jim closed the door and checked the windows before speaking. My name isn't Jim Dalton. It's James Dalton, Pinkerton Agency. I was assigned to watch you 6 months ago. Lucas's hand went to his gun. Assigned by who? By the men who know Lucas Kane is still alive, who know you have information that could bring down half the corrupt officials in 3 territories, who want you alive and willing to testify. I told them no 2 years ago. I told them I was done. And they respected that, until 3 months ago when the syndicate started moving again, expanding operations. Getting bolder. They need your testimony, Kane. They need what you know. So you're here to drag me back to Chicago to put me in front of a courtroom. No, I'm here to keep you alive long enough to make that choice yourself. Jim looked at Evelyn. And to make sure your wife doesn't get caught in the crossfire. She's already caught, Lucas said bitterly. The moment she answered my advertisement, she was caught. Jim pulled a folded telegram from his pocket. This came through the telegraph office this morning. Margaret sent it. The operator is sympathetic to Pinkerton. He made a copy before it was sent. Lucas read it aloud. Target confirmed. Female matches description. Male identity verified. Recommend extraction in 2 weeks. Will maintain surveillance. They're giving us 2 weeks, Jim said. Then they'll come in force. Probably a dozen men. Maybe more. And they won't ask politely next time. Evelyn sank into a chair. 2 weeks. 14 days before her past caught up with her completely. Why 2 weeks? She asked. Because they're waiting for something, Jim said. Orders from higher up, or reinforcements, or both. Jim's expression darkened. There's something else. Something I've been holding back until I was certain. Lucas stopped pacing. What? Caleb. I've been watching him for the past month. He sends letters to Denver, always after dark, always when he thinks no one's looking. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. You think he's reporting to them? I think someone has leverage on him. The syndicate doesn't recruit true believers. They find people with something to lose and twist the knife. Jim pulled out a small notebook. I intercepted one of his letters, managed to steam it open and reseal it. It was addressed to a boarding house in Denver, the same boarding house the syndicate uses as a safe house. What did it say? Lucas asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Nothing incriminating, just general updates. Ranch is quiet, no visitors, weather holding. But the pattern is clear. He's reporting your movements. Lucas's hand moved to his gun. I should confront him. Not yet. If we spook him, he'll either run or the syndicate will know we're onto them. Better to let him think he's undetected. Feed him false information. Use him as a channel to mislead them. And if he's not being leveraged, Evelyn asked, what if he's a true believer? Then when this is over, he hangs. Jim's voice was flat, final. But my gut says he's a victim, not a villain, the way he looks sometimes, like a man carrying a terrible weight. That's guilt, not malice. Lucas nodded slowly. We watch him, careful. And when the time comes, we give him a chance to come clean. And if he doesn't, then we do what needs to be done. Lucas paced the room like a caged animal. We could run, take the horses and disappear into the mountains. There are places they'd never find us. For how long? Jim asked. A month, a year? You can't run forever, Kane. Eventually, winter would drive you down. Eventually, you'd need supplies, medicine, contact with civilization, and they'd be waiting. So we stay and fight, 3 of us against a dozen professional killers. Not 3, Jim said. Tom Crawford would stand with us, maybe some of the other ranchers, if they understood the stakes. This community doesn't like outsiders throwing their weight around. I won't ask civilians to die for my mistakes. Then what? You surrender hand over the ledger and hope they let you live. They won't, Evelyn said quietly. Both men turned to look at her. My father tried to negotiate, tried to find a way out. They killed him anyway. Because once you know their secrets, you're always a threat. The only way we survive is if we destroy them first. Lucas knelt beside her chair. How? The ledger. Your testimony. We give Pinkerton everything, but not on their terms. On ours. We make it public. Newspapers. Multiple copies sent to different cities. Make it so big they can't silence it. That would start a war, Jim said. We're already in a war. We just haven't been fighting back. Lucas studied her face. You've changed. A week ago you were terrified. Now you're talking about starting wars. A week ago I was alone. Now I have something worth fighting for. She took his hand. I meant what I said. Whatever comes, we face it together. He squeezed her hand, then stood. All right. We have 2 weeks. We use them. Jim, I need you to ride to the nearest Pinkerton office. Send word to your superiors that we're ready to cooperate, but on our conditions. What conditions? Protection, full immunity, new identities after we testify, and they hunt down everyone in that ledger, every name, every crime. No deals, no compromises. That's a tall order. That's the price. Take it or leave it. Jim nodded. I'll leave at dawn. But Kane, you need to know something. Margaret, I've been watching her. She's not syndicate. Not exactly. Then what is she? She's personal. I think she's connected to your past, to Sarah. Lucas went pale. Sarah didn't have family. She was orphaned young. Are you sure, or is that what she told you? The question hung in the air like smoke. The blizzard came 3 days after Jim left. Evelyn woke to the sound of wind screaming against the house. Through the window the world was white chaos, snow driving horizontal, visibility 0. Lucas was already up dressed in layers. I have to check the cattle, make sure they're sheltered. In this, you can't see 5 feet, which is why they need help. They'll try to find shelter and end up freezing in the wrong place. I have to move them to the windbreak. Let me come with you. No, too dangerous. I'm coming anyway. If something happens to you, I need to know where you are. He started to argue, then saw her face. All right, but you stay close. Hold on to me. If we get separated in this, you'll be dead in minutes. They bundled in every warm thing they owned. Lucas tied a rope around his waist and handed the other end to Evelyn. Don't let go, no matter what. They stepped out into the storm, and the world disappeared. The wind was a living thing trying to tear them apart. Snow stung Evelyn's face like needles. She couldn't see Lucas even though he was 3 feet ahead of her. She could only follow the rope and trust. They made it to the barn by following the rope Lucas had strung from the house. Inside, the horses whinnied nervously. Caleb was there already, saddling mounts. Most of the herd is in the valley, he shouted over the wind. But there's a group near the north pasture. If they don't get to shelter, they'll freeze. How many? Lucas asked. 20, maybe 30 head. Lucas turned to Evelyn. Stay here. We'll be back in an hour. If you're not back in 2, I'm coming looking for you. He kissed her forehead quickly. If we're not back in 2, we're already dead. Don't be stupid. Then he and Caleb rode out into the white hell. Evelyn waited. 1 hour became 2. 2 became 3. The storm showed no sign of stopping. If anything, it was getting worse. She paced the barn, her anxiety building with every minute. The horses sensed her agitation and stamped nervously. 3.5 hours. She couldn't wait anymore. She began saddling Daisy, her hands shaking. That's when she heard it. Hoofbeats. Multiple horses. Relief flooded through her. They'd made it back. She ran to the barn door and opened it, but it wasn't Lucas and Caleb. It was Margaret and 2 of Garrett's men. They rode directly into the barn, blocking the exit. Margaret dismounted gracefully despite the storm. "Mrs. Reed, how fortunate to find you alone. We were hoping for a private conversation." Evelyn's hand moved toward the pitchfork leaning against the wall. "Don't," Margaret said. One of the men had a rifle pointed at her. "We're not here to hurt you. We're here to offer you a choice." "What choice?" "Your husband is Lucas Kane, former Pinkerton detective. The syndicate has wanted him dead for 2 years, but they're willing to make a deal, his life for yours." "What?" "Give us the ledger. Tell us where Kane has hidden his evidence, and we'll let you walk away. Clean slate. New identity. Money to start over anywhere you want. And Lucas will be executed quietly, painlessly. I'll make sure of that." Evelyn stared at her. "Why would you do that if you're his sister?" "I'm not his sister," Margaret said. Her voice was suddenly raw with emotion. "I'm his sister-in-law, Sarah's little sister, the one who watched her die slowly from poison while Lucas did nothing." The pieces fell into place. The personal hatred, the intimate knowledge of Sarah's death. "He didn't know," Evelyn said. "He didn't know it was poison until after she died. He should have known. He was a detective. He investigated murders for a living, but he was so wrapped up in his own work, his own cases, that he didn't see what was happening in his own home." Margaret's voice broke. She called for him at the end. "Did he tell you that she was bleeding and dying, and she kept asking where Lucas was? And he wasn't there. He was in town chasing some lead on some case. He came home to her corpse." "That wasn't his fault." "Wasn't it the syndicate poisoned her to send him a message, to warn him off their trail? And it worked. He quit investigating. He ran away and hid like a coward. But it was too late for Sarah. Too late for baby Emma. All he cared about was saving himself." "Is that what you really believe?" Margaret's face was a mask of pain and fury. "I believe my sister died because Lucas Kane couldn't let go of a case, and now I'm going to make sure he pays for it, by working for the men who killed her, by using them to get what I want. Justice. This isn't justice. This is revenge. Call it what you want, but you have a choice. Save yourself or die with him." Margaret pulled out a pocket watch. "You have 5 minutes to decide. After that, my men will search this barn and find that ledger I know you're hiding, and then we'll wait for Lucas to come back and kill all 3 of you." Evelyn's mind raced. The ledger was in her trunk, in the house. If they searched the barn, they wouldn't find it, but once Lucas returned, they'd take him, kill him, unless she could buy time. "The ledger isn't here," she said. "Where is it? Hidden. Somewhere you'll never find it. And if anything happens to me or Lucas, it gets mailed to every newspaper between here and Washington." It was a bluff, but Margaret couldn't know that. "You're lying. Am I? You think I'm stupid enough to carry the only leverage I have? The moment you found me, I sent copies. Insurance." Margaret studied her face, trying to read the truth. The barn door burst open. Lucas and Caleb stumbled in, ice in their beards covered in snow. They saw Margaret and her men and went for their guns. "Don't," Margaret said. The rifle swung to point at Evelyn's head. "Or I'll paint the barn with her brains." Lucas froze. His eyes met Evelyn's. "Margaret, whatever you think I did, leave her out of it." "Why you didn't leave Sarah out of it? You dragged her into your war with the syndicate. You made her a target. Why should your new wife be any different? Sarah was an accident. I never meant for her to be hurt. But she was hurt. She died screaming in agony while poison ate her from the inside. Did you know it was arsenic? Do you know what that does to a person, how it feels?" Lucas's face was ash gray. "Every day. I think about it every day." "Good, because now you're going to feel it, watching someone you care about die, unable to stop it." Margaret pulled a small vial from her coat. "This has been in the well water for 3 days. Low dose, slow acting. Your wife has already ingested enough to start showing symptoms: nausea, headaches, fatigue. Sound familiar?" Evelyn's hand went to her stomach. The nausea she'd felt for the past few days. She'd thought it was nerves, but it was poison. Lucas lunged forward, Caleb grabbed him, holding him back as Margaret's men raised their weapons. "It's not fatal yet," Margaret said. "Give us the ledger. Give us your testimony. Agree to recant everything you know about the syndicate. And I'll give you the antidote." "You're lying. You'll kill us anyway." "Maybe. But this way she has a chance. Your choice, Lucas. Your wife's life or your justice." The moment stretched out. Evelyn could see Lucas breaking, could see him preparing to give in. "No," she said. Everyone looked at her. "No," she repeated stronger. "We don't negotiate with murderers." "You're dying," Margaret said. "We're all dying. The only question is whether we die accomplishing something or die for nothing." Evelyn stepped away from the rifle toward Lucas. "She's bluffing. If she'd really poisoned me, she wouldn't need to threaten. She'd just wait. This is a play to make you panic." Margaret's face twitched. Evelyn knew she'd guessed right. "But even if she's not bluffing," Evelyn continued, "I won't let you sacrifice everything you've worked for, everyone you could save. The syndicate has to be stopped. If I have to die to make that happen, so be it." Lucas caught her hand. "Evelyn, I meant what I said. We face it together, whatever comes." Margaret's expression shifted from fury to something almost like respect. Then it hardened again. "Fine. Have it your way. We'll do this the hard way." She raised her hand to signal her men. The barn exploded in gunfire. Caleb shoved Evelyn behind a hay bale. Lucas returned fire, his revolver barking. One of Margaret's men went down clutching his shoulder. The other dove for cover. Margaret ran for her horse. Lucas aimed at her, retreating back, then lowered his gun. He couldn't do it. Even now, even after everything. She escaped into the storm. The wounded man was screaming. Caleb checked him, then looked at Lucas. "He'll live. What do we do with him?" "Tie him up. We'll hand him over to Jim when he gets back. He's evidence." Lucas turned to Evelyn. "Are you hurt?" "No. But we need to talk about what she said. The poisoning. It was a lie. Had to be. Was it I have been feeling sick? What if she wasn't bluffing?" Lucas's face went white. "Then we get you to a doctor. Now." "In this storm we'd never make it to town. There's a line shack 2 miles north. It has supplies, medical kit. We wait out the storm there, and at first light we ride for town." Caleb spoke up. "I'll stay here. Guard the prisoner. You two go." Lucas nodded. "If Jim comes back, tell him what happened. Tell him Margaret is working with the syndicate but has her own agenda. He needs to know." They saddled fresh horses and rode out into the blizzard again. This time Evelyn rode beside Lucas, their horses tied together with rope. The world was white chaos. She couldn't see, couldn't breathe, could only trust that Lucas knew the way. After an eternity, a dark shape emerged from the snow. The line shack, barely more than a cabin. But it had walls and a roof and a door they could close against the storm. They stumbled inside. Lucas got a fire going, while Evelyn collapsed onto a rough bunk. The warmth slowly returned to their frozen limbs. "Let me see the medical kit," Evelyn said. Lucas found it on a shelf. "Basic supplies, bandages, laudanum, some herbs. Nothing sophisticated." "There's nothing here for arsenic poisoning," he said quietly. "I know." They sat in silence. Outside, the wind howled. The fire crackled. The small cabin was an island of warmth in an ocean of killing cold. This was the quiet moment, the pause between storms. Evelyn looked at Lucas in the firelight. His face was haggard, haunted, carrying the weight of too many deaths. "Tell me about her," she said softly. "About Sarah, not how she died, how she lived." Lucas was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he began to speak. "She was fearless, completely fearless. The first time I met her, she was breaking a horse that had thrown 3 men. She stayed on, gentle but firm. That was Sarah. Strong enough to dominate, but kind enough not to break. You loved her. More than I knew how to express. She was my best friend, my partner. We built this ranch together from nothing. And Emma," his voice cracked, "Emma had Sarah's eyes, gray like yours. She lived 10 minutes, long enough for me to hold her. Long enough for me to promise Sarah I'd take care of her. Not long enough for me to keep that promise." Evelyn reached for his hand. "It wasn't your fault. Margaret's right about one thing. I was so focused on the case that I missed the signs. Sarah was sick for weeks before she went into labor. Headaches, nausea, weakness. I thought it was pregnancy, but it was poison, slow and insidious. You couldn't have known. I should have. I was trained to see patterns, to notice details. But I was blind to what was happening in my own home. Because you trusted the people around you. That's not a flaw, Lucas. That's being human. He looked at her. When did you get so wise? About 3 hours ago, when a woman pointed a rifle at my head and I realized I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of not fighting back. Lucas laughed. Bitter, but real. We're a pair, aren't we? Two broken people running from the same evil. Maybe that's why we fit. Our cracks line up. He pulled her close. She rested her head on his shoulder. They sat like that for a long time, not speaking, just breathing, just being. If you are poisoned, Lucas said finally, we'll find a way to fix it. I won't lose you the way I lost Sarah. And if you can't fix it, then we make whatever time you have left count. That's all we can do anyway. Poison or no poison, we're all dying from the moment we're born. The only question is what we do with the time between. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, they sat together in the warmth and the quiet and the fragile peace of two people who had chosen each other against all odds. When dawn came pale and cold, they rode back to the ranch. Jim was there. He'd arrived during the storm, and he had news. Pinkerton agreed to your terms. Full immunity, protection. They want you in Chicago in 2 weeks to start testimony. What about the syndicate's extraction team? Lucas asked. They're still coming. In 10 days now. Pinkerton wants us to let them come. Set a trap. Capture them alive if possible. Use them to trace the higher-ups. You want to use my ranch as bait. I want to end this for good. You in? Lucas looked at Evelyn. She nodded. We're in. But first we need to deal with Margaret. She's the wild card. Already ahead of you, Jim said. I did some digging. Margaret Caldwell, formerly. Margaret Caldwell Kane, Sarah's younger sister. Sarah ran away from an abusive father when she was 16, left Margaret behind. Margaret's been looking for her for years. By the time she found you, Sarah was already dead. So she blames me. She blames everyone. The syndicate for poisoning Sarah, you for not protecting her, herself for not finding Sarah sooner. She's been working with the syndicate to get close to you, but her loyalty is to her own pain, not to them. Can we turn her? Maybe. If we can prove to her that the syndicate is her real enemy, that you've been trying to avenge Sarah all along. Lucas shook his head. She won't believe it. She wants to believe I'm the villain. It's easier than accepting that Sarah's death was random, senseless. Then we'll have to make her see the truth. 3 days later, the second twist arrived. Lucas received a letter, official looking, from the county clerk's office. He opened it and went pale. What is it? Evelyn asked. Our marriage. It's not legal. What? The justice of the peace who married us. He wasn't licensed. He was a con man. Margaret arranged it. The marriage never happened. Evelyn felt the floor drop out from under her. Why would she do that? Jim answered. Because a wife can't be forced to testify against her husband. But a woman who's simply living with a man has no legal protection. If the syndicate takes you, they can make you talk. And Lucas can't claim spousal privilege. It's a trap, Lucas said. They've been planning this from the start. Margaret befriends me, arranges a fake marriage. Now when they come, they can separate us, interrogate us individually. We remarry, Evelyn said, tomorrow, with a real justice. The nearest real justice is in Helena, 3 days' ride. We don't have time. Then we make time. Lucas took her hands. Evelyn, legally married or not, you're my wife. That doesn't change. But it changes everything legally. We need that protection. We'll figure it out. I promise. The day after the siege, federal marshals arrived from Helena. The lead marshal, a stern man named Patterson, reviewed the documents. His face darkened. Mr. Kane, we have a problem. Your marriage to Miss Ashford was never legally registered. The officiant was unlicensed. We know, Lucas said. Then you understand the implications. Under territorial law, Miss Ashford has no spousal protection. The syndicate's lawyers could petition to interrogate her separately. She could be compelled to testify against you. Evelyn felt ice in her veins. Can they do that? They can try. And in your current status, they might succeed. Patterson closed the file. I strongly advise you remedy this situation immediately. The nearest licensed justice is in Helena, Lucas said. 3 days' ride. And Miss Ashford is in no condition to travel. Patterson glanced at Evelyn, pale and recovering. "I'll expedite the process. Send for Justice Whitmore. He can be here in 1 week." "Will that be fast enough?" Evelyn asked. "It will have to be. Until then, you're vulnerable." That week was agony. Every day they waited for syndicate lawyers to arrive with writs. Every night Evelyn slept with her packed bag beside the bed, ready to run if they came for her. Lucas barely left her side. On the 7th day, Justice Whitmore arrived. That night Evelyn couldn't sleep. She lay in her bed in her room that was supposed to be temporary but had become permanent, and thought about all the ways this could end. The syndicate could win. They could kill Lucas and take her. Margaret could betray them at the crucial moment. Pinkerton could decide they weren't worth protecting. The poison, if it was real, could kill her before any of it mattered. But lying there in the darkness, she realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. Fear had been burned out of her by the fire of the last few weeks. What remained was something harder: determination, purpose. She got up and went to Lucas's room, knocked softly. "Come in." He was sitting by the window watching the night. He didn't look surprised to see her. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "No." She crossed to him. "Lucas, I need to tell you something. All right? I think I'm pregnant." He went very still. "What? I know the symptoms could be poison, but they could also be pregnancy, and I think I need to know which before everything falls apart. We'll get you to a doctor tomorrow. There's no time. Jim said the extraction team arrives in a week. We have to prepare." "Then we prepare pregnant. Whatever you are, whoever you are, we face it." She sat beside him. "I'm terrified. So am I. What if we don't survive this? Then we make damn sure we take them down with us." They sat together in the darkness, watching the stars over Montana. Two people who had come together out of necessity and desperation. Two people who had found something more valuable than safety. They had found purpose. And in 7 days they would find out if that was enough. In town, Margaret sat in her hotel room and composed a telegram. "Subjects isolated. Marriage invalidated. Extraction team can proceed on schedule. No complications expected." She sent it and returned to her room, but sleep would not come. She kept seeing Evelyn's face, the way she'd stood up to the rifle, the way she'd chosen to risk death rather than betray Lucas. Sarah would have done the same thing. The thought made her hands shake. She poured whiskey and drank it straight, trying to drown the doubt. She was doing the right thing. Wasn't she making Lucas pay for his failures, for Sarah's death, for Emma's death? But that look in Evelyn's eyes, that fierce loyalty, that willingness to die for something larger than herself. Sarah had looked at Lucas the same way once. Margaret threw the glass against the wall. It shattered, like everything else in her life. In 7 days it would all be over, one way or another. The storm, when it came, would be worse than any blizzard, and not everyone would survive it. The 7 days before the extraction team's arrival moved with the slow inevitability of an approaching storm. Lucas and Jim prepared the ranch like a fortress. They reinforced doors and windows, stockpiled ammunition, identified firing positions, and escape routes. Every detail was planned with military precision, but it was Caleb who broke first. On the 3rd day, Lucas found him in the barn at midnight, saddling a horse. "Going somewhere?" Lucas asked quietly. His hand was on his revolver. Caleb froze. When he turned, his face was haggard with guilt and fear. "They have my sister, Mr. Reed." "The syndicate. They took her 6 months ago. Said if I didn't watch you report your movements, they'd kill her." "So you've been spying for them." "I never wanted to. I never wanted any of this. But she's all the family I have left." Lucas studied the younger man, saw the truth in his desperate eyes. "Where is she?" "Denver. They're holding her in some kind of boarding house. She writes me letters. They make her write them to prove she's alive." "Show me." Caleb pulled a crumpled envelope from his coat. The letter was brief, written in a shaking hand. The words were innocuous. But in the margins, in tiny script, a woman had written coordinates and a street address. "She's smart," Lucas said. "Your sister. She's been telling you where she is." "I know, but I can't get to Denver and back before the extraction team arrives. And if I run, they'll kill her." "You're not running. You're going to Denver with an escort. Jim's men." Caleb's head snapped up. "What? Jim?" Lucas called into the darkness. The Pinkerton agent emerged from the shadows where he'd been listening. "You have men in Denver. 2 agents. Good ones. Send word. Have them extract Caleb's sister, bring her somewhere safe, and send Caleb with your fastest rider as insurance. If he's telling the truth, he gets his sister back. If he's lying, he hangs." "And if the syndicate realizes we've pulled their leverage?" Jim asked. "Then they'll know we're on to them, but we already know they're coming. This just moves up the timeline." Jim nodded slowly. "I'll send the wire tonight. Caleb, you leave at dawn. If you betray us, you won't live to regret it." "I won't, I swear. Thank you, Mr. Reed." After Caleb left, Jim turned to Lucas. "You believe him. I believe desperation makes people do terrible things, but I also believe in second chances. Sarah used to say everyone deserves one. You know, Sarah was a better person than most." "Yes, she was." They stood in the barn listening to horses shift in their stalls, the weight of what was coming pressed down on them both. "How many men can you get here before they arrive?" Lucas asked. 4, maybe 5 if we're lucky. Experienced agents. But we'll still be outnumbered 2 to 1. Then we need to even the odds another way. How? By turning their weapons against them. Margaret is the key. If we can flip her, the syndicate loses their inside source. Their plan falls apart. "She tried to kill your wife 3 days ago. She tried to scare us. There's a difference. Margaret wants revenge, but she's not a killer. Not really. Her sister was gentle, kind. That doesn't just disappear from a family." "You're taking a hell of a gamble." "I know, but I don't see another choice." The next morning, Lucas rode into town alone, against Jim's protests, against Evelyn's fear. But some conversations had to happen face to face. He found Margaret in the hotel dining room, drinking coffee and reading a newspaper. She looked up as he approached, but showed no surprise. "Lucas, come to kill me. Come to talk. How civilized." He sat across from her. Up close, he could see the resemblance to Sarah, the shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. It made his chest ache. "I loved your sister," he said without preamble, "more than I've loved anyone before or since. And her death destroyed me. If you want revenge for that, fine. Take it. But don't pretend the syndicate cares about justice. They killed Sarah to hurt me, and they'll kill you the moment you're no longer useful. I know what they are. Do you know they're planning to kill Evelyn, that woman you met? She's innocent. She's guilty of nothing except answering a letter from a desperate man, and they'll murder her without hesitation. She has the ledger. She's also pregnant. With my child, your niece or nephew." Margaret's cup rattled against the saucer. "You're lying." "I've never lied to you. Not once. Even when the truth cost me everything. If she's pregnant, that's your fault. You should have kept your distance, kept her safe." "The way I should have kept Sarah safe," the words hung between them like drawn knives. Margaret's face crumpled. "You weren't there, at the end. Do you know what that's like? Watching someone you love die in agony, calling for someone who never comes. I know exactly what that's like. Because I came home to find Sarah already gone, already cold, and I never got to say goodbye. Never got to tell her I was sorry, that she deserved better than me. She did deserve better. You're right. She deserved a husband who put her first, who saw the danger, who protected her. I failed her. I failed everyone I've ever tried to protect. But I'm asking you, Margaret, don't let me fail Evelyn too. Don't let the syndicate win again." Margaret was crying now, silent tears tracking down her face. "I wanted you to hurt, the way I hurt, the way Sarah hurt. I do hurt every single day, but hurting me won't bring Sarah back. It won't give you peace. It'll just create more bodies, more grief. What do you want from me? Help us. When the extraction team comes, stand with us instead of against us. Be the person Sarah would have wanted you to be. And what person is that? Someone who fights for the living instead of dying for the dead." Margaret wiped her eyes with shaking hands. "There's something you need to know about the poison. I did contaminate the well water, but only with enough to make her sick. Not enough to kill. I wanted to scare you, not murder an innocent woman." Lucas felt ice run through his veins. "How do I cure her? Activated charcoal, lots of water. She'll be weak for a few weeks, but she'll survive. The baby too if she's really pregnant." "Where do I get activated charcoal?" "I have some. In my room. I'll get it." She stood, then paused. "Lucas, Sarah's journal. I have it. She kept it hidden from you, wrote in it every night. You should read it, before you decide whether to forgive me. I don't need to read it to forgive you. You were protecting your sister's memory. That's not a crime. Read it anyway, please." She left and returned with a leather-bound book and a small vial of black powder. She handed both to Lucas. "Give her a spoonful mixed in water 3 times a day for a week. She'll taste like charcoal, but she'll live." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. The extraction team doesn't know I've switched sides. When they come, they'll expect me to help them. If I betray them, they'll kill me. Then we make sure they don't get the chance." Margaret's smile was bitter. "You always were an optimist. Sarah loved that about you, said you saw the world as it could be, not as it was." "What else did she say?" "Read the journal. You'll see." Lucas rode back to the ranch with the journal in his saddlebag and hope flickering cautiously in his chest. That evening, after giving Evelyn the first dose of charcoal and watching color slowly return to her face, he opened Sarah's journal. The entries were dated, starting from the day they met, running all the way to 3 days before her death. Lucas read them alone in the barn by lamplight, with tears streaming down his face. Evelyn found him there 2 hours later. She sat beside him without speaking, just put her hand on his shoulder while he wept. "She knew," he said finally. "She knew she was being poisoned, knew it was the syndicate. She wrote it all down." "Why didn't she tell you?" "Because she knew I'd go after them, knew I'd get myself killed trying to protect her. So she suffered in silence to keep me safe." He showed Evelyn the final entry written in Sarah's increasingly shaky hand. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. Don't blame yourself, my love. You gave me 4 years of happiness. That's more than most people get in a lifetime. Take care of our daughter. Name her Emma, like we planned. And when enough time has passed, find someone else to love. You deserve that. You deserve to be happy. Don't let my death make you hard. Stay the good man I married, the one who sees light even in darkness. I love you. Always. Sarah." Evelyn was crying now, too. "She sounds like she was an amazing person. She was, and she'd have liked you. You're strong like she was, brave like she was." "I'm not brave. I'm terrified." "Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite the fear." They sat together in the quiet barn, mourning a woman they'd both lost, one to death, one to time, both to the same evil. "The baby," Evelyn said softly. "Margaret told you about the pregnancy. I guessed. The symptoms, the timing. Are we happy about it? I don't know. I'm scared. What if something happens? What if I end up like Sarah?" "You won't. We have the antidote. We have Mrs. Chen. We have time to prepare. Time. That's the one thing we don't have. Then we make the most of what we've got." He pulled her close. She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. Tomorrow the Pinkerton reinforcements would arrive. The day after the extraction team. And then the storm would break for real. But tonight they had this, the quiet, the warmth, each other. It would have to be enough. 2 days before the siege, Caleb returned. He rode into the ranch yard at sunset, and he wasn't alone. A young woman sat behind him on the horse, thin, exhausted, but alive. Lucas and Evelyn came out to meet them. "This is my sister, Anne," Caleb said, his voice thick with emotion. "Pinkerton got her out. She's safe." Anne slid down from the horse and immediately embraced her brother. They stood there holding each other while the sun set behind the mountains. "Thank you," Caleb said to Lucas, "for giving me a chance, for saving her. You earned it. You stayed. You helped during the blizzard. That counted for something." "I want to fight," Caleb said. "When they come, I want to stand with you." Lucas studied the younger man, saw the determination there, the need to prove himself. "All right, but your sister stays with Martha Crawford, somewhere safe." "Agreed." That night, Anne sat at the kitchen table with Evelyn drinking tea and telling her story, how the syndicate had taken her, how they'd used her to control Caleb, how she'd hidden messages in her letters, hoping someone would see. "You were very brave," Evelyn said. "So were you. Caleb told me what you did. Standing up to them. 2 women who'd been used as leverage, who'd survived, who'd found their way to freedom." Outside, Caleb and Lucas prepared for war. The siege began at dawn on the 7th day. They came from 3 directions. 4 armed men on horseback, the corrupt sheriff from town, and a man in a black suit who radiated authority and malice. Lucas watched them approach from the house. Jim and 4 Pinkerton agents were positioned in the barn and bunkhouse. Tom Crawford and 2 neighboring ranchers crouched behind the corral fence. Inside the house, Evelyn loaded rifles with steady hands. The man in the black suit stopped 50 yards from the porch. He dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Lucas Kane," he called. "I believe we have business to discuss." Lucas stepped onto the porch. "I don't do business with murderers." Strong words from a man who killed 3 of my associates in Chicago. Self-defense. They tried to kill me first. A matter of perspective. I'm here to offer you a choice. Surrender yourself and the woman. Give us the ledger, and we'll make your deaths quick, painless. That's your idea of a choice. The alternative is we kill everyone on this ranch. You, your wife, your friends, your neighbors, everyone who's ever helped you. Then we burn it all to the ground and salt the earth. You talk too much. Lucas drew and fired in one motion. The bullet took the sheriff through the chest. He fell without a sound. The man in the black suit dove behind his horse. His men opened fire. The battle was joined. Bullets tore through the morning air. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. The Pinkerton agents returned fire from the barn. Tom Crawford's rifle barked from behind the corral. The syndicate men had numbers, but the defenders had position. And they had something else. Desperation. The knowledge that surrender meant death. The fight raged for 20 minutes, then an hour, then 2. One of the syndicate gunmen went down, then another. But Jim took a bullet through the shoulder. One of the Pinkerton agents was killed instantly by a headshot. Inside the house, Evelyn fired through a window. Her hands were steady. Her aim was true. She'd never shot at a living person before, but she didn't hesitate. This was survival. A rider appeared on the ridge. For a moment, Lucas thought it was more syndicate reinforcements. Then he recognized the horse, Margaret. She rode directly into the firefight, not toward the syndicate, toward the house. "Cover her," Lucas shouted. The defenders laid down, suppressing fire. Margaret made it to the porch and threw herself through the door. "They have explosives," she gasped. "Dynamite! They're going to blow the house." "Where?" "The man in the black suit. He's carrying it, planning to get close under cover of darkness and place charges. Then we end this before dark." Lucas turned to Evelyn. "Can you shoot?" "I've been shooting for 2 hours. I mean really shoot. Kill a man if you have to." She met his eyes. "Yes?" "Good. Because I need you to do something dangerous." He explained the plan. It was insane, risky, but it was their best chance. Evelyn listened, then nodded. "Let's do it." They waited for a lull in the firing. Then Evelyn stepped onto the porch, hands raised to white cloth tied to a broom handle. "Stop shooting," she called. "I surrender. I have the ledger. I'll give it to you if you let the others live." The firing ceased. The man in the black suit emerged from cover. "Show me." Evelyn walked slowly down the porch steps. She was trembling, but her voice was steady. "It's in the barn, in a trunk. Let me get it." "No tricks." "No tricks." She walked toward the barn. The man in the black suit followed her, keeping his gun trained on her back. Lucas watched from the window, waiting, timing. Evelyn reached the barn door, opened it, stepped inside. The man in the black suit followed. Jim was waiting inside. So was Tom Crawford. They grabbed him from both sides, disarmed him, threw him to the ground. Evelyn emerged from the barn. "We have him." The remaining syndicate gunmen hesitated. Their leader was captured. The odds had shifted. Lucas stepped onto the porch. "It's over. Throw down your weapons, or we start executing prisoners." One of the gunmen raised his rifle. A shot rang out, but not from Lucas. From the ridge. The gunman fell, dead before he hit the ground. Martha Crawford stood on the ridge with a hunting rifle. Behind her were a dozen townspeople, armed, angry, ready to defend their own. The last syndicate man dropped his weapon, raised his hands. The siege was over, but the cost had been high. 1 Pinkerton agent dead, Jim wounded. 2 of the syndicate gunmen dead, the sheriff dead, property damage that would take months to repair, and Margaret. They found her in the barn slumped against a hay bale. She'd been shot during the final exchange. The bullet had caught her in the chest. Lucas knelt beside her. "Hold on, we'll get a doctor." Too late. Blood bubbled on her lips. I'm sorry for everything. Tell Sarah I tried to make it right. You did make it right. You saved us. Lucas. Her hand found his. The journal, last page. She wanted you to know. Know what? That she forgave you, even then. Even dying, she forgave you. Margaret's eyes closed. Her breathing stopped. Lucas sat there holding her hand while the chaos of the aftermath swirled around him. Jim shouting orders, townspeople securing prisoners, Evelyn directing the wounded to be cared for. Sarah's sister was dead. Another casualty of a war that had started before Lucas even knew he was fighting. He wanted to weep, to rage, to burn the whole world down. Instead, he stood, gently closed Margaret's eyes, and went to help with the living. Because that was what Sarah would have wanted, what Margaret had died trying to do. The living mattered more than grief. 3 days later, the ranch was quiet again. The prisoners had been taken to Helena. The bodies had been buried. Jim's shoulder was bandaged and healing. The townspeople had returned to their homes with promises to stand ready if needed again. And Evelyn stood in the kitchen, trying not to vomit from the lingering effects of arsenic poisoning and early pregnancy both. Mrs. Chen had come from town, examined her thoroughly, declared both mother and baby healthy despite everything. You're strong, the midwife said. The baby is strong. You'll both be fine. But Evelyn didn't feel strong. She felt exhausted, traumatized, overwhelmed. Lucas found her sitting on the porch at sunset. He sat beside her without speaking. I killed a man, she said quietly. I know. I shot him through the window, watched him fall, and I felt nothing, no remorse, no horror, just relief that he couldn't hurt us anymore. That's normal, in war. Is that what this was, war? Yes, and we won. At what cost? Margaret is dead. A Pinkerton agent is dead. How many more will die before this is truly over? None. The man we captured is talking, giving up names. The Pinkerton agency is coordinating with federal marshals. They're rounding up everyone in your father's ledger, everyone connected to the syndicate. It's over, Evelyn. We won. Then why doesn't it feel like winning? Lucas put his arm around her. Because winning in war means surviving, not celebrating. We're alive. That's the victory. They sat in silence as the sun painted the Montana sky gold and red. Pinkerton wants us in Chicago next month, Lucas said. For testimony, it'll take weeks, maybe months. And the baby will be born here, in our home, with Mrs. Chen attending. I'm not taking you anywhere until after the birth. Pinkerton can wait. They won't like that. I don't care. I spent years putting duty before family. It cost me Sarah. It cost me Emma. I won't make that mistake again. Evelyn turned to look at him. What are you saying? I'm saying I choose you. I choose our baby. I choose this life we're building. Pinkerton can have my testimony, but they can't have my soul. Not anymore. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. 2 weeks later, they rode to Helena, to the courthouse, to a real justice of the peace. And in front of Jim, Mrs. Chen, Martha and Tom Crawford, and a handful of townspeople who'd become family, Lucas Kane married Evelyn Ashford, properly, legally, with vows that meant everything. I, Lucas, take you, Evelyn, not out of necessity, not out of convenience, but because you're the bravest person I've ever known, because you stood with me when you could have run, because you chose hope over fear. I promise to choose you every day, for the rest of my life. Evelyn's vows were simpler, but no less true. I, Evelyn, take you, Lucas, because you gave me a choice when I had none, because you showed me what partnership really means, because you're worth fighting for. I promise to stand with you, in war and peace, in sorrow and joy, always. They kissed as husband and wife, for real this time, not a business arrangement, not a desperate alliance, a marriage built on honesty and tested by fire. The months that followed were a slow return to normalcy. Lucas gave his testimony via written deposition. Pinkerton accepted it. 73 men were arrested based on the ledger and Lucas's evidence. The syndicate's power was broken, not destroyed. Evil like that never truly died, but crippled, scattered, reduced to shadow of what it had been. Lucas and Evelyn's names were cleared. The wanted posters were withdrawn. They could live openly again. In December 1885, 13 months after that first desperate train ride to Montana, as snow fell soft and quiet over the ranch, Evelyn went into labor. It was long, painful, terrifying. Every contraction made Lucas think of Sarah, of blood and death and helplessness. But Mrs. Chen was competent, calm, and Evelyn was strong. After 14 hours, a baby's cry split the winter air. "It's a girl," Mrs. Chen said, her voice warm with satisfaction. "Healthy, perfect." She placed the baby in Evelyn's arms. Lucas knelt beside the bed, his hands shaking. "She's alive," he whispered. "You're alive. You're both alive." "What should we name her?" Evelyn asked. Lucas looked at his daughter, at her tiny face, her dark hair, her gray eyes. "Emma," he said, "if that's all right with you, for the daughter I lost, and the sister-in-law who tried to make things right. Emma Kane, I like it." They sat together in the warm room while snow fell outside. A family. Broken pieces that had found each other and somehow formed something whole. Jim visited on Christmas Eve. He'd resigned from Pinkerton and accepted Lucas's offer of full partnership in the ranch. "Couldn't go back to Chicago," he said, holding baby Emma with surprising gentleness. "Saw too much out here. Learned what matters. This is home now." Over the next years, the ranch prospered. Lucas and Evelyn built more than a business. They built a legacy. Using the blood money recovered from Charles Ashford's estate and compensation from the Pinkerton Agency, they established the Ashford Kane Foundation. Its mission was simple: help women escaping dangerous situations, provide them with resources, legal aid, transportation, new identities, if needed. The first woman they helped was Clara Walsh, the widow Margaret had mentioned. They gave her the train ticket to Ohio and a job helping to run the foundation. More women followed. Dozens, then hundreds. Women fleeing abusive husbands, women escaping trafficking, women whose only crime was knowing too much about powerful men's crimes. The foundation gave them what Lucas had given Evelyn: choice, dignity, a fighting chance. More children came: Thomas in 1887, Rose in 1889, twins James and Lily in 1891. The ranch house that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with children's laughter. Lucas aged into the role of father and patriarch with grace. The grief over Sarah never fully left, but it transformed, became something he carried rather than something that carried him. He would visit her grave sometimes, stand there in silence, then go home to his living family. That was the balance, honoring the dead while fighting for the living. Evelyn became everything Lucas had hoped for and more, not a replacement for Sarah, but a partner in her own right, strong where he was weak, gentle where he was hard. Together they built something that mattered. 10 years after that first desperate train ride west, Evelyn stood in her garden on a summer morning. She was 33 now, lines around her eyes from squinting at the Montana sun, calluses on her hands from work, graying hair she didn't bother to dye. She looked nothing like the terrified Boston girl who'd stepped off the train in Stillwater. She looked like a woman who'd earned every scar, every wrinkle, every strand of gray. She looked like home. Lucas came out of the house with Emma, now 9, chattering about horses. Thomas followed nose in a book as always. Rose was in the garden already examining a caterpillar with intense focus. The twins were still sleeping. Small miracles. "Mrs. Walsh just arrived," Lucas said. "She's brought someone new, woman from Denver, escaping a bad situation." Evelyn wiped her hands on her apron. "I'll talk to her. Make some tea." "You don't have to do this yourself every time. We have people." "I know, but I remember what it was like. Being desperate, afraid, not knowing if you could trust anyone. She needs to see a face that understands." Lucas kissed her forehead. "You're extraordinary. You know that I'm practical, like you taught me." She went inside. The woman waiting in the parlor was young, barely 20, bruised, terrified. Evelyn sat across from her and poured tea with steady hands. "My name is Evelyn Kane. I run this foundation, and I want you to know something. You're safe here. Whatever you're running from, it can't touch you. We'll make sure of that. How can you promise that? Because someone made me the same promise once, and he kept it. Now it's my turn to keep it for you." The woman started crying. relief, exhaustion, hope. Evelyn let her cry, offered tea and tissues, and the simple gift of presence. When the woman calmed, Evelyn spoke again. "What's your name?" "Grace. Grace Miller." "Well, Grace Miller, you have a choice to make. We can help you go anywhere you want, give you money to start over, help you disappear if that's what you need, or you can stay here, work with us, help other women like yourself. The choice is completely yours. No pressure, no expectations." Grace looked at Evelyn with red-rimmed eyes. "What did you choose when you were in my position?" Evelyn smiled. "I chose to stay, to fight, to build something instead of running forever. It was the hardest choice I've ever made, and the best." Outside, she could hear her children playing, Lucas's laugh as he chased them, Jim's voice calling about some ranch business, the sounds of a life she'd carved from desperation and fear, and one stranger's honest offer. "I want to stay," Grace said quietly. "I want to fight too. Then welcome home." That evening, after the children were asleep and Grace was settled in the guest room, Lucas and Evelyn stood on their porch. The valley stretched below them, green in summer's fullness, cattle grazing peacefully, the creek running silver in moonlight. "Do you ever miss Boston?" Lucas asked. "Sometimes. I miss my parents, the life that could have been, but I don't regret leaving. Even with everything that happened, the danger, the violence, nearly dying, even with all that, because it brought me here, to you, to this," she gestured at the ranch, "to purpose." Lucas pulled her close. "I love you, Evelyn Kane. I don't say it enough, but I do. I know, and I love you, my stranger, my husband, my home." They stood together as stars wheeled overhead, two people who'd found each other in desperation, who'd chosen each other in crisis, who'd built something lasting from broken pieces. The journey from that first terrified train ride to this moment had been long, painful, often terrifying, but it had been worth it. Every hard choice, every sacrifice, every moment of fear, all of it had led here, to this porch, this man, this life. Evelyn thought about the girl she'd been, the one who'd changed her name and run west with nothing but a trunk and a desperate hope. That girl was gone, transformed by fire and blood and love into someone stronger, someone who didn't just survive, someone who helped others survive. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what? For giving me a choice 10 years ago, when you offered the return ticket, when you said I could leave at any time. That choice saved my life." "You saved your own life. I just opened the door. You did more than that. You showed me what partnership means, what love can be when it's built on honesty instead of illusion." Lucas kissed her, soft and long and full of promise. "Come on," he said. "Let's go to bed. Tomorrow there's work to do. There's always work to do." Welcome to ranching. They went inside together, to the home they'd built, the family they'd created, the legacy they were leaving. As the door closed behind them, moonlight caught the sign Lucas had hung that morning. New wood, fresh paint, letters carved deep. Kane Ranch, established 1885. Built on honesty, sustained by choice, no more aliases, no more running, no more hiding who they were, just a family, a home, a legacy. Outside Montana, night settled over the valley, deep and peaceful. Inside, the stranger and his bride slept in each other's arms, two people who'd gambled everything on honesty, and won. The end.